Dana White is stacking the hell out of these 2025 cards already, dude. And to cap it all off, well, relatively, Israel Adesanya, contender Izzy. And I'm talking about genuine contender Izzy is back, not just fighting for the belt for the third time. Israel Adesanya is headlining a fight night in Saudi Arabia, fighting an up-and-coming prospect on a win streak. And it's a great main event to have. He's going to be facing, obviously, Nassourdone Imavov in a 6 striker versus striker main event. And, of course, as well for the co-main, we're going to be talking about today, Shara Magomedov is going to be fighting on home turf once again to be fighting MVP, stepping up a weight class in a really intriguing matchup. I know this one was kind of on the works for fucking Twitter and all that. These guys were talking about it, but I thought it was going to be one of those really cool matchups on paper that we're not actually going to get, but it's coming true, you know. And Dana White, Hunter, whoever the fuck, so whoever's making all these matchups, man, 2025 for the most part, it seems like a really stacked year. I know that obviously they're going to want to start the year strong. We're going to have to see if it can hold through the entire 365 motherfucking days, but still, man, they're pulling out all the stops. It's a great card, and we're going to be mostly just talking about these two fights today, doing a little bit of an early preview for the main event and co-main event for Fight Night Saudi Arabia for February 1st. So, Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdone Imavov. I mean, there are so many questions around not only Imavov, of course, because he is the kind of guy that's on the rise, has the win streak going, wants to take Israel's top spot. So there's a lot of questions about him, of course, you know, and this is a huge test for him. But there's a lot of questions for the former champion as well, man. I mean, like I said earlier, this is a great matchup, striker versus striker. But the question is, are we going to see levels to this, you know? Because as good as Imavov is, he's piecing up some good wins on the resume. He's got like a nice few fight win streak going. Hasn't lost in a few years, and his last loss was to Strickland, who, of course, you know, Strickland's now fighting for the fucking belt, former champion, so nothing wrong with that. But other than Strickland, Izzy is going to be a huge test for Imavov. And even the Izzy now, I know that Izzy's getting up there in age, I know that he doesn't have the belt anymore, and I know that we're in this weird arc for him right now, but I still think that Izzy is going to be dangerous and present a lot of problems for Imavov. And the thing is, I picked Duplessis to beat Adesanya at UFC 305. I thought that Duplessis had a lot of the advantages. I was breaking the fight down for a few months prior in my head. I'm like, you know what, I just see DDP winning this one. You know, Izzy's out here playing golf and shit, and Izzy, you know what, came up to that fight and showed up very well. I don't think it says anything against Adesanya. I just think that DDP right now, if there's anybody to beat him, it's probably going to be Chimaev. But other than that, I think DDP is going to beat the whole division, at least for the foreseeable future in the next couple of years, in my opinion. But maybe that's a hot fucking take. But in terms of Israel Adesanya himself, he showed up to that fight a lot better looking than I expected, man. You know, landed nice to the body, landed nice combos. He looked quick in there. He wasn't throwing any kicks, which DDP kind of noticed. And, you know, maybe there were some rumors or whatever, I think, of like an injury going into the fight, and that's why Israel wasn't throwing any kicks at all. But still, I mean, Adesanya looked good in that fight, way better than I fucking expected. And DDP still got the win, granted, but Israel won 2 rounds off of him and had a lot of good moments, and it makes Izzy fans, and including me, someone who picked DDP to win against him, confident going into this fight against Imavov that he still has it, you know? And the fact that this is only a few month turnaround, I mean, Izzy could just fight once a year or once every other year if he fucking wanted to, but he's going on to foreign turf. I know it's not Imavov's home soil either, but traveling the country when he doesn't have to, kind of stepping down, fighting the prospect, going to a fight night. I think this shows, and especially with, you know, kind of coming back relatively quick, you know, it's not a Covington and he's stepping out a year, and look at how that worked out, you know? There are consequences to that shit, but Izzy wants to be active. Do I ever think he wins the belt again? To be honest, no, but I do think that there's a lot of good matchups for him in the rankings, especially in a division like middleweight. And people might be saying for this fight, we need to see the old Izzy come back for this. You know, we need to see the old Izzy. Not necessarily true. A lot of the times when fighters, I feel like, or just athletes in general, kind of rely on that old sense of self, or they rely too much on who they were and not like implementing new shit. Like, I think it works against them, and a lot of the times they come up short, you know? So Israel Adesanya, we don't just need to see the old Izzy. We need to see some of the good aspects that got Izzy to the top, of course, still stick around, but we also need to see new things incorporated into his game, you know? Not just a complete change or in his style or how he's gonna fight or all that kind of shit, but, or I'm not just saying that Izzy's gonna just turn to a wrestler. I don't see him a wrestler now. Like, I'm not just saying that's gotta be the case, but the Izzy that we saw fight DDP, I wouldn't call that like the old Izzy, you know what I mean? So combining elements from the fight against DDP versus back in the day versus his experience as champion, a big difference in this fight between Imavov and Izzy is championship level experience and just experience against top level guys, and I think that's going to be a big advantage for Izzy going into this one because he has so much experience at the top. And Imavov, you know, he's fought some kind of, you know, top ranked guys, but came short against Sean Strickland. And I mean, some of these other wins that he's getting, you know, you're looking at like the Brendan Allens and some of the other ones on the win streak, Jared Cannonier, and these are solid ranked names, but in terms of like big things, Israel Adesanya is the second or third greatest middleweight of all time. So when it comes to legacy, this fight matters clearly a lot to both. But let's talk about how Izzy matches against the top 6, okay? Because honestly, when you're looking at Imavov, I think that Imavov is a good matchup for him because I'm leaning towards Israel to win this fight, to be honest. I think when you put him against a guy like Strickland, who knows? Maybe Izzy wins one, maybe Strickland wins one. Who knows? They can go back and forth because obviously Strickland won the first time.
Chinaman ain't got shit on me. I'm never gonna lose to a man who paints his fucking nails.
Whitaker and Izzy, I mean, you could say the same thing, like they can go back and forth, but Kyle Baralho, a guy who's kind of a bit more well-rounded, in my opinion, than Nassourdone Imavov, and you also have guys like Khamzat Chimaev in there, who is, everybody's saying the Mike Tyson of grappling and just fucking demolished Whitaker in a round. So, like, there are some scary matchups, you know, for Izzy in that top 5, but outside the top 6, you know, sorry, top 5, top 6, outside that Kyle Baralho range, I really do think that there's a big step off in competition, because now we're dropping down to the fucking Roman Dolidze's and the Marvin Vittori's and the Brendan Allens, all that shit, the rankings. You know what I mean? So, Imavov, in my opinion, is probably the most winnable matchup for Adesanya in the top 6, you know, because I think that Imavov, while is dangerous, you know, he does have some power in those hands. He knows how to put on the volume. He is a good striker. His cardio has been improving. He has good takedown defense. So Imavov is a good fighter, becoming more well-rounded by the day. But in terms, like I said, in terms of those top 6 matchups, I do think that Imavov is probably the most favorable for Adesanya to get the win. Imavov's stand-up is good. You know, he can present a lot of problems. It's going to be interesting to see if he can actually dictate where the fight goes, you know, dictate the pace and the pressure. If he can keep Adesanya guessing, you know, keep Adesanya on the back foot. Like, in my opinion, the biggest weaknesses for Imavov going into this fight is the fact that it is 5 rounds, because, like I said, Imavov does have improving cardio. It's going to be interesting when you're going 5 rounds against a guy like Izzy, who is known for, yeah, you know, we all like to fucking joke around who's a decision machine and all that, but Izzy in 5 rounds, it kind of is this element in a big main event spot against a guy like Imavov, who has been getting more big spots lately. But in my opinion, if Imavov isn't able to dictate the pace, isn't able to get the pressure and the volume of Izzy in the striking, determine where the fight goes, isn't able to maintain the distance between Izzy when he wants to, or get in the pocket when he wants to, like, if Imavov can't control this fight and he just lets Izzy do whatever he wants and does the champ shit, that's how I think Izzy is going to pull away in this fight and maybe pull off like a 49-46 decision. You know, I think that it's going to be close. I think this is going to be kind of a stand and bang 5-round bit of a war. I know that Izzy, sometimes he's not used to going complete wars, but I think that was the champion phase, you know? I'm not just saying now that Izzy doesn't have the belt that he's going to go out there and fight like a fucking maniac, but I think he's going to fight similarly to how he did in the DDP fight, but again, mixed with a little bit more risks. I think that Izzy, now that there's a little bit, he can have more fun with it. There's not as much pressure. I think that he's going to take a bit more risks and have a bit more fun with it, you know, going into the fight with, not to say that pressure ever beat him before, but I think there's going to be a lot less of it now, and I think that's just going to honestly turn into his favor, because Israel's kind of one of those guys, whether you fucking love him or you hate him, I know a lot of people hate him, but he does wear his heart on his sleeves, and he makes it clear that he does want to get a few more fights. Whether he wins the title or not, he's motivated, and I think that's going to help him in this one. When you look at how Imavov did against Brendan Allen, right? First round, Allen got the takedown, had pretty efficiently down, didn't do any damage or advancing of positions or any of that shit, but Imavov got the takedown down pretty easily. Sorry, Allen got the takedown on Imavov pretty easily, but then after that, those next 2 rounds, Allen had absolutely nothing for him, and who knows what the fuck was up with it, but Imavov pieced him up on the feet, you know, and kind of like widened the gap, not only in terms of just making Allen miss for the takedowns, but widening the gap on the feet in the striking exchanges. So Imavov won that a nice little 29-28. That was a good win for him. There was questions for him, you know, we did see that he was getting caught a bit by Brendan Allen, you know, and Brendan Allen was shooting like a madman to the ground, face first to the canvas, and he isn't really known for his striking. Then when you look at the Jerry Cannonier win, it was kind of a pretty competitive fight until that pretty, I don't even want to say bullshit stoppage. It was an early stoppage though, man, you know, and I mean, good win for Imavov, good name, and Cannonier though, I just think that like that he's still in it, and I think lately we've been seeing fighters kind of like letting the fight go, the referees let the fighters go a bit more, but this was not one of those cases. Stopped fucking early. But again, when you're looking at that, I don't think Imavov is going to be able to get a finish over Israel Adesanya. You know, yeah, Imavov does have some power in there, but like, I don't think he's going to be able to knock out a guy like Adesanya. I think you need big power or something crazy to be able to do that against Izzy to really get the, I mean, yeah, you got a guy like Strickland who isn't a power puncher either, but he's getting the knockdowns on Izzy. That's one thing. But to actually beat him, be some kind of KO, TKO, whatever the fuck, and they're probably going to let Izzy go a little bit more because it is Izzy and he's the big draw. So again, with the referees, they're going to let him go. I can't see Imavov winning this one via submission. Izzy's only been subbed once in his entire career. That was Izzy's last fight. So this fight isn't ending via sub for Imavov. I can't see Imavov having really the power to crack Izzy too bad to really get a KO or a TKO. So the only way Imavov, in my opinion, could get this win is via decision. Maybe I'm wrong and this is going to age terrible, but I don't see Imavov getting that decision. I think Adesanya is going to overwhelm him, going to drown him, going to piece him up with the technique. He's going to have the speed and the precision. I think he's going to be able to mix in the technicality and the patience with the risk-taking and the aggression. And ultimately, I think that's going to get him the 49-46 win. I think that Izzy's biggest weaknesses in this fight is going to be like the grappling, maybe the loss of momentum. Overall, Imavov's going to present some problems for him, give him some threats for sure, and I think it's going to be a fun fight, but I am going to be going with Israel. Early prediction is like a 49-46. Who fucking knows? Anything can change, but moving on up next to the co-main of the card. Amazing matchmaking, and I got to appreciate them for this. It's a striking spectacle. It's a dream in a fight that I really didn't expect to really ever happen, but it's Shara Magomedov, the Bullet, versus Michael Venom Page, dude. And again, this is going to be such a fun fight on the feet. These guys were kind of chirping back and forth on X like a couple months ago. I think around like the UFC 308 time, might have been after, like right before or after Shara got the big finish over Petrosian, and like that was one of those fights where I'm like thinking about, I'm like, okay, MVP versus Shara. Like these guys aren't going to shoot a takedown. It's going to be a war. They're going to get after it. They're going to piece each other up, and it's good for both guys, and it's winnable. So overall, it's great matchmaking, but I just never saw the fight actually fucking happening. It just seemed like one of those things that are like fighters are just going to talk on Twitter and then go back and forth, and they just move on, and MVP is going to fight a fucking Michael Morales or some shit. You know what I mean? But no, I'm really glad that this one's working out. It's going to be a spectacle on the feet. I think that, like I'm saying, a big thing to note for this fight is how is Michael Venom Page going to translate at middleweight. MVP is the taller fighter by an inch, and he does have a 6-inch reach advantage, but still, I just think in terms of overall the building of the frames, MVP is a little bit more lean built, slim built, and while I do think he has power and he can crack, you know, and like he has good takedown defense, so like even though he is on a bit of like the skinnier guys compared to these kind of like fucking beefcakes at middleweight, MVP does have strength, you know, like he isn't too easy to get to the ground, and he does have power. So against a guy like Shara, though, I think Shara is a bit more built for the middleweight division, so I think that this matchup in general is going to be favoring him. And when I look at this fight off the top of my head, like I honestly lean towards Shara winning this one. I'm curious what the betting odds are going to be, but it's curious to see how are the frames going to compare. And also when we talk about the styles make fights, right? Of these two, it's striker versus striker, but who's going to show their tenacity more than the other guy? Who's going to impose the volume? Who's going to crack the other guy? Who's going to get the better of who? It's going to be really interesting to see because, like I said, no grappling in this one, so we're going to get 3 to 5 rounds of just back and forth. So let's kind of break down these guys' kind of recent fights. So obviously we just saw Michael Venom Page's last fight against Ian Gary, and Gary did not want to strike with him, you know, oh, it's, you know, wrestling now kind of shit. And like Gary kind of was taking him in the clinch a lot, kind of was trying to get the takedowns, and sometimes successful, sometimes not. But MVP, it was a close fight. Some people thought he won. I personally had it 2-1 Gary. I mean, you could even argue that it was just a fucking draw, to be honest. But kind of a dud. Not a great fight for both guys in terms of rising their stock. And especially, I think it was a fight that some people were excited for, the exchanges on the feet. But unfortunately, MVP turned Gary into a wrestler, so we didn't see too much of that one. It really just got MVP to 1-1 in the UFC. And he did have good moments. You know, it went to show that, like, he can turn a guy into Gary who, yeah, Gary does want to become more well-rounded by the day. He does have good takedown defense. Probably wanted to go out there and show his fucking skills. Don't get me wrong. But again, man, you got to kind of piece him up a bit. And then we talk about the fight before against Kevin Holland. I mean, that was obviously a great performance. I know that beating Kevin Holland, each year that goes by, it becomes less and less more of like a good win. It's always going to be a good win. It's Kevin fucking Holland, but it used to be more elite than it is now. But either way, it is a Kevin Holland win. Got the 29-28, I believe, and it was a good win at 299. Entertaining fight, and MVP, man, like just had such aura and confidence in that one. And I think he did as well for Ian Gary, and I think we're going to see the confidence go into this one again. I think that chirping on Twitter, the fact that he's stepping up a weight class to take this fight, MVP is 37 years old. You know, I think he just kind of wants to take fun matchups. I don't know how he envisions himself, how close he is to the title or not, but I want to see MVP get some really fun matchups. There's a lot of them for him. I mean, we could have got like him versus Wonderboy, but honestly, I'd rather see this. Wonderboy is getting a bit up more there in age, so who the fuck knows? So this is honestly a fight I'd rather see for Michael Venom Page, because let's just give him fun matchups. You know, this isn't a guy that's really going to be fighting like the top 5 anytime soon, and he's getting up there, so let's just fucking make fun matchups, and that's what this is. So let's talk about Shara now, obviously getting the double spinning back fist over Armen Petrosian, and Armen Petrosian, in my opinion, was an appropriate and good step up in competition for Shara, so people were kind of doubting him a little bit. You know, obviously I think a lot of people were picking him to win the fight, but against Petrosian. But in terms of like Shara as a prospect and Shara going into that fight, I think that a lot of people see the flaws in his game, the holes in his game. Obviously he isn't great on the ground. There are some questions with the cardio and all that. He has some of the best kickboxing in the game, and especially in the division. You know, he has amazing precision, amazing technique. He's quick. He does have power, but the Petrosian finish was good for him because added another highlight to the reel and goes to show that he doesn't have to rely as much on like just technique and precision. Obviously, what he does with that in that regard is excellent. You know, he's one of the best kickboxers in the UFC, but developing the power in the gym, developing it with age, building up your frame a bit more. I think when you start adding that on, building up more highlights, and especially now we're putting putting you up against a guy like MVP. Like, imagine getting a crazy knockout win over a guy like that. So Shara against Armen was definitely a good win. Petrosian was for sure giving him some problems at times, don't get me wrong, but overall, man, I think that win was the one that Shara needed to kind of like validate him a bit more as a kind of up-and-coming contender, you know, because I think that Shara can beat a lot of guys in the rankings. You know, he is really talented, and he does have great striking. His defensive grappling and his cardio, which are two of the most questionable things in this game, are at least developing. We've seen visible progress in the short time he's been in the UFC, from his first fight to his most recent. So if there's any consolation to his future and kind of being hopeful for it, kind of towards those top guys, especially when him and like a Bo Nickel are coming up at the same fucking time, it does help to know that he's going out of his way to make these improvements in his game. And again, I don't think a guy like MVP is going to possess a ton of problems in regards to like the cardio or the grappling. So it all comes down to who's going to outland who's going to be quicker than who's going to have more power than who, you know, who's going to dictate the pace and the pressure of this fight. I think that honestly, the fact that MVP, the fact that he's getting a bit up there in age, especially in division like welterweight, kind of that middle ground between the lighter divisions and the heavier divisions. So 37, kind of getting up there in age. I'm gonna probably be leaning towards Shara with a round 2 or a round 3 TKO knockout. I know that MVP's only been finished once on his entire career by TKO, but I do think that Shara, just considering the circumstances, considering the stepping up of a weight class, considering MVP's strengths lying in his power and his quickness, I mean, even Kevin Holland is like, he's faster than we thought. He has a bizarre style, and overall these things just make him dangerous on the feet. He's a dangerous competitor, and he's a guy you gotta fucking worry about in there. But against a guy like Shara, even with one eye, I do think with the improvements that he's been making in his game, and with the fact that he's younger, with the fact that he's riding a bit more right now on the momentum, and also because I think he presents a bit more problems in terms of the volume and the power compared to guys like Holland or Gary. Overall, I think these things are going to help Shara Bullet kind of get close to the win on this one, and I could see like a round 3 TKO or maybe a 29-28 decision. I don't fucking know. MVP's future in the UFC, I say just give him fun fights, and Shara's future in the UFC, as long as he keeps developing where he needs to and becomes more well-rounded, which I know is so much easier said than done, because clearly we all know what his fucking style is, and when these guys are planning to fight him, they know where he's weak and they know where he's strong. I still think there's a lot of potential for the guy, to be honest, so I guess we're just going to have to see. But yeah, I'm going to be leaning towards Shara Bullet on this one. But overall, in general, man, this is a fantastic card. We have other fights like Sergey Pavlovich versus Jarinza Rosenstruck on here. We have Ikram Alaskera versus Andre Muniz. Shamil Gaziev, dude, everybody's favorite fucking blob. He's back. He's going to be fighting Thomas Peterson. We also have Said Nurmagomedov fighting Vinicius Oliveira on this card. Jordan Levitt and some others as well are on this card. And we also have Rafael Paziv versus Matus Gamrot, the rematch set. So overall, very stacked card. The prelims from the main card. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to on this one. But man, let's hope that 25 does great with cards. Okay, 2024 was so on and off, as I've been talking about a lot lately in my videos. Let me know your guys' opinions in the comments below. Thank you guys so very much for even making it far in this video. Give me your time of day. It is greatly appreciated. So all the smoke MMA, thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts, your picks, your opinions. Where was I right? Where was I shit? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, thank you guys so very much for tuning in. All the smoke MMA, we're almost at 600 subs. Appreciate you guys for that. We just had a great UFC Tampa yesterday. So lots of on and off shit this year, and lots of good shit to hopefully look forward to next year. So all the smoke MMA, let me know what you guys think below, and I will see you guys next time.